So just get a minute. I'm gonna go get spun up here. Go in and tag you, and we can got a little bit of discussion. Video edit for the commentary, so that way people can see what we're talking about on multiple forms. We're about to get started, people. I am here with the Greene Fyre. Some of you might know her as Mary.
No, don't say that. Just say the Greene Fyre.
Oh, I'm not supposed to say that?
Yeah, just say the Greene Fyre.
Is that bad?
It's fine.
Okay, so weird.
I mean, it doesn't matter that much, but I really would prefer to be. Okay, so did you just post it on your page? Oh, there it is.
It is on the page, and I'm going to tag you now. I see people already coming in.
You are live.
We are live. It's not me.
Alicia.
So who am I? I'm tagging Greene.
Crystal is here because she has no life.
Well, Crystal and I have a lot in common. We have
the Greene Fyre review. The Greene Fyre review. You should just put it there if you can.
I don't know if I can tag Greene Fyre. No, it doesn't come up.
Crystal has no life.
Well,
okay.
I think it's not just Crystal.
It doesn't look like it's going to let me share it to the Greene Fyre review. We'll share it later. Hey, everyone.
Hello, this is Gerard and Greene. We're going to have a little bit of a discussion. Appreciate everybody jumping in. Oh, wow. Looks like a bunch of people are around today.
I'm just overflowing, and I wanted to have this conversation with Gerard because I've been dark for about 3 weeks. I've been actually a month. I've been studying. I've been really putting together my next understanding of what to do in terms of activism and changing the world. And I'm so excited to share. And Gerard has been joining in on this journey with me. So anyway, how do we want to start?
As best that he can.
Mark Ketchick says, well, we all have no life. And we all have a strong passion for truth. Thank you, Crystal. Hey, Elaine. Hey, Walt. Lots of people here.
Yep, we got Walt, Alicia, Elaine, Buddha, Crystal, Mark, Shaylee. We've got a whole bunch of people that I can just see from the last minute. So
that's right.
So, Greene, you sent me a message, said, let's have a discussion. There was something on my wall, and you said you wanted to have a discussion with me. So I'm wondering, am I in trouble? Did I do something? I'm always in trouble.
Yeah, you definitely did something wrong. We've all been coming at this whole changing the world, activism, making the world a better place thing from, I really think, from the wrong angle. And I don't mean to make people wrong, but I feel like we haven't been as effective as we could be if we changed our attitude and our approach a little bit. And you and I have been talking about this.
Yes, we have. Approach is everything. You can be well-meaning all you want, but if you don't have an effective approach, it's pointless.
That's right. And so what I've been learning is that can I just talk for like a minute?
Go for it, girl. You got the mic. Can everybody just make sure everyone can hear you well? Can everybody hear well?
The mic. Remember when you were a kid and you'd be in your bedroom, like with your friends? I don't know if you did this, Gerard, but girls definitely did this. And you'd do the trio singing group into your hairbrush.
Y'all sing in the hairbrushes?
Oh yeah.
You get hair stuck between your teeth. I've seen those hairbrushes. Those teenage hairbrushes.
Oh yeah.
It's protein, I guess.
Because I have a lot of hair. Okay, so anyway, I have had a big revelation, and my spiritual life and my activism life are really converging, and I'm so excited about that because I've been watching Sarah Westall, who I really like a lot. She's a truth seeker who has a business focus, and she's very open-minded. She does a very professional live stream on YouTube, and she has a lot of really unusual and interesting people on. And I caught a couple videos that she did, interviews that she did with folks who were pursuing the law movement, or what a lot of people call the sovereignty movement. And that was very interesting because I've been speaking a lot with my friend Bob Bose, who is the proponent of public banking and people waking up to the global power structure. And I've been talking to him and saying, Bob, I feel like I need to understand the law more. And then here these guys were, and they were talking about understanding the true legal structure of the whole world, and how we fit into it, and understanding our status and our standing and our capacity as human beings, and how to change that. And one of the people that I heard speak was Ken Cousins, of the Pantera d'Oro Mutual Benefit Society. I think that's the right name. And they have a educational program called the Gemstone University. And Ken's talks blew my mind, and I ended up just spending a week more. Well, it would have been a week if I'd done it in 5 days, but I did it in like 3 days, and I listened to 4 hours of his interviews. And everything he was saying was just making the bells go off, because he was talking about the true legal structure of the world and how we can't actually regain our power until we regain our status as free human beings. And he started talking about the actual legal structure of the U.S. and how that ties to the legal structure of other countries. And the things that he was saying, it's like, I lost my pants. My dentures just flew out. It just flew out.
Wait. You did what?
I was like gumming my way through in amazement. I was like, no. So I started sharing a few little bits with you, Gerard, and then what happened when, and I don't even know how to begin to describe what I learned, so I'm going to throw it to you.
Just throw it, because I've only been slightly introduced to it, and I've been watching posts, and I did want to have a couple of you guys come on and tell us more about it, so throw it, girl.
Okay, well, basically, the U.S. is okay, there's a couple different corporations that are related to the United States, and I'm not an expert in this. I'm just beginning, so I may describe this all wrong. But what I've learned is that legally and officially, sounds so crazy, but every corporation on the planet is a subdivision of the corporation, which I believe is called the British Crown, but it's not actually the Queen. It's the I don't remember the right term. It's the entity that is the City of London, and that every corporation on the planet is a subdivision of that. And the U.S. corporation is a bankrupt, as are most of the other countries in the world, and that this bankruptcy was instituted shortly after we got the private central bank, which is part of the Anglo-American Euro banking cartel. So that issues fiat currency based on debt, and that every citizen is actually a bankrupt bonded surety to that debt. So we don't actually have the standing on the land that we used to have. We're not actually, citizen doesn't mean what we think it means. And when or shortly after the U.S. was declared a bankrupt, it also declared all of its citizens enemies of the state. So if we don't like what the country's doing and we complain about it, they can declare us enemy combatants and belligerents. And that just rang all kinds of bells for me, because we see the way people were treated at Standing Rock, and there's lots of documents that keep turning up that are handbooks that are used by contract military and paramilitary that the corporations hire, that describe protesters as belligerents and enemy combatants. And I was so floored by all of this, and it was so upsetting. And then I watched Ken Cousins talk about the process of regaining your standing and all of the steps that you go through for that. And the first one being, you have to come to a place of peace, and to realize that the matrix that we're in is a projection of our own minds, and that when we are in war and we are fighting against it, we are perpetuating it, because that's what it's designed to do. The U.S. is and most other countries now, or many other countries that have the central banks and have the citizen serfs, are in a state of perpetual war. The U.S. is a bankrupt that's in a declared state of war. And the only way to change this is to bring ourselves to personal peace and to stop being embattled about it, so we can be informative and informational and help other people to be aware. But our approach, if we want to change anything, most usefully comes from a place of saying, I see how I'm part of this. And I've really been meditating on it and really taking it in and seeing it across the board, the way that my mind separates and I turn the world into a perpetrator and I'm the victim of it. Like, they're spraying us with chemtrails. Well, actually, that's not the way they see it. That's not the way they see it. When we give our tacit agreement to oppress other people in other countries by the way that we purchasing things that we know are made in a way that causes other people suffering, the entities that own and control the powers that kind of own and control, the levers of the system, who actually understand how it works. This is hard to talk about. How there are people running the levers and we're actually all complicit in this. They see that when we're engaging in commerce and we're buying things that are being made by people in a way that causes them suffering and they don't know how to extract them from it, we're agreeing to have suffering in the name of commerce wreaked upon us as well. And I understand that now. I understand that every time we say there are too many people in the world, what we're saying is, I agree with the Matrix saying this, that there are too many people in the world, and I agree that you can do things to me that might kill me. I agree that you can take me out. So there's so many things to say, and I have joined Pantera, and I'm so slowly going through the orientation process. And I haven't learned much more than what I learned in the publicly available videos, and there's some really great series. But I find that I really am finding peace. I'm not in a place of anger and combative, and I can talk to people and get them to talk about things like chemtrails without people freaking out. Everyone should go look on my page under Mary Lynn, because they made me change my name. They made me change my name, the bad system, which I agreed to be part of, which I joined, voluntarily at Facebook. Everyone should look on my page. I posted today about experience I had talking about chemtrails, and it wasn't combative because I came from a place of peace, and it's just dramatically different. And I wanted to talk about this with Brother Gerard because he's such a good example of coming from this place and being united and not being all about how we're victims. And now I'm going to stop blabbing.
No, I know you have my curiosity. So I'm going to try to sum this up in summary. The aliens, Illuminati, big banks, queen, whoever she is, whatever they are, they basically got us to buy into not being America anymore, to basically hand over our souls and our children through social security numbers and licensing and certification. And so we're participating in their psychological, psychotic wet dream of getting everyone to spend all of this money, put others in slavery, and write all these unconstitutional laws. And you're getting a sense of peace because you basically realize that you don't have to be a part of it, that you can just step away and just say, you know what? I no longer give you authority over my life. Is that kind of what you're saying? Minus the aliens.
I think you're edging towards it, but it's not, I no longer give you authority over my life. It's, I'm learning how to stop participating in projecting this toxic matrix. I want to project a different matrix and actually understanding from the most legal basis of the way the powers that be see us and the control that they feel they are perfectly justified in wreaking over us and managing us. Now, you know that I spent about 6 months reading and studying the globalist texts. I didn't actually read some of them. I didn't read firsthand. I followed Jay Dyer at jaysanalysis.com. He's done a series on the globalist book series, and then I read a wonderful analysis of one of the most important globalist books, and it's called Tragedy and Hope 101, and that's put out by Joe the Plumber, but it's 2 M's, not an MB. Okay. And it's an everyman's book report on that incredibly important text. But, you know, the power players, they have a very clearly laid out depopulation agenda, and they have been getting us to agree with it over and over and over again. Yeah. And it's really... Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm getting in trouble for that now. I'm kind of laughing at this idea that we're overpopulated because it's silly and it makes absolutely no sense. I mean, just from a land perspective alone, there is more than enough land to grow food for everybody on this planet. I think the number was something like 10 billion people just in a state the size of Massachusetts with vertical farming.
That's right.
We know we can feed the whole planet. We got enough water for the whole planet. So when people say overpopulated, I really don't know what they mean. I look at it from a land mass perspective. So we're not overpopulated from land mass. The ocean is just full of surface area. We know we can do floating cities. We know we can do floating gardens. There is a person, my goodness, who's actually doing aquaponics underwater.
That's
we know we can feed, we have the technology to feed the whole world. So we're nowhere near overpopulated. But you know what? Harsh said something today that made me really think. And it made me think, how do we even know there's 7 billion people on this planet?
Exactly.
In the Western world, if the previous generation had 10 kids and 8 kids and 6 kids, and the current generation is only having 1, 2, or none, massive instability all throughout the West, how in the world do we even know that there's 7 billion people? Mary, there could be 5 billion people on this planet. And if I controlled those numbers, I controlled the counts, you would have no idea if I were lying or telling the truth.
And that's another thing that I was first turned on to my friend Bob. He said, well, when you read the globalist papers and the globalist text, you realize that these guys who got together and came up with these plans for the world, they also created the UN. I mean, it's the same people. This is not actually fantasy or paranoia. I've been reading the books, reading the articles, looking at the videos where people lay out what they're saying. So, and the UN controls those numbers. So, so we don't actually know, but we
don't know anything.
We don't know. We also don't know that climate change, which is the big thing about, that's been tied to overpopulation. It's the next generation of this mind control. Well, we know that the geoengineering, which they've now are admitting, over and over and over again that they're doing, causes warming. So we don't actually know that we're overpopulated. We don't actually know what's causing the climate change. And again, there's really good research on this. Corbett Report did a really great series on this, on how and why big oil conquered the world and what is sustainable development. And I watched all of that and I said, okay, the same people who are,
behind it all.
But we have given them permission. We really, really, really have given them permission.
You know what? It's worse than that, though, because not only did we give them permission, we give them permission every single day.
That's correct.
Buy into it. And one of my states of, where I get my peace from is I don't really make any crazy statements. I don't take any positions on anything. I admit I don't know anything. And everything I know is handed down to me from the lords and the kings, and they have a history of lying to me about every damn thing. So I don't think that it's worth it to get into an argument with somebody, another poor person, about something that we couldn't possibly know. And so
we can start to know, we can start to educate ourselves, and we can start to learn I want to say the words adult and mature, but that sounds scoldy. I want to learn more sophisticated and more effective ways to communicate with these entities that we have ennobled to be the powers, that control things over us. And I do think that the sovereignty movement, I haven't found any system that seems as complete as the Pantera system, but I have other things like, let me grab this. I did get, a friend got this video series on, I don't know if you guys can see it. And I hear that this is a small part of the overall picture and not a complete part. But I'm not coming from a place of wanting to fight the system and fight the battle. I'm not fighting it. I'm part of it.
Yeah.
I'm part of it. So how do I be part of it in a different way?
Yeah. But that's what it wants you to do, right? It wants you to fight it. It wants you. It's the same thing with, people who talk about like violent revolutions, right?
Right.
But this is what Homeland Security wants. This is what the FBI wants. This is what the powers want. They want the ability to walk in and actually utilize all of these laws and forces and tanks and bullets and bombs and hollow points and all this thing. They're getting ready for this violent reaction from America because America's such a revolution focused country. The idea that all we have to do is walk away from the system, to me, that brings immense peace.
We can't walk away from the system.
No?
We change ourselves and we change our relationship within the system. But we are creating the matrix every day with every thought, with every breath, with everything we buy, with every interaction with people. We can't walk away from the system, but we can change ourselves in the matrix, and we can change our relationships, and that way we can change the matrix. And this isn't a woo-woo, sit and meditate, start being vegetarian thing. Great, do those things. But this is actually a legal process where we are dialoguing with legal entities to change our relationship with it. And I find that really exciting. I find that really hopeful. And I got really freaked out and upset when I was watching the chemtrailing the day before yesterday, and then somebody sent me reports that came from that were done where somebody sent in their rainwater and their snow to be tested from Boulder County, and the numbers were sky high. They made Claudia's numbers look like nothing, and I was really, really upset about that, and I felt really victimized by it. And then I picked myself up and I said, they've been doing this the whole time I've been alive, and I have not been paying attention to this. It is my responsibility to pay attention, to educate myself, and to have a response. And now I'm trying to figure out that response.
Fight with people and perpetuate it.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I said, and to not fight with people and perpetuate it.
Right.
It's that division that keeps this going. If people come actually realize, and I only have little basic knowledge of it, but it actually makes a lot of sense, and it actually seems too easy that we actually, if we were a massive people, we could effectively just no longer participate.
Well, we're going to continue to participate, but we're going to change the way that we participate.
Oh, right. I mean, the system has to stay there, but in terms of participate from you have the right to write all of these constitutional laws over my body, my person, my children.
Right.
You no longer have the right to do these things because they never had the right to do these things, right? They're not subject to constitutional law.
I can't get into that. They say they think they have a perfect right, and I don't want to argue they're bad, they're wrong. Corey just made a comment here. Oh, now the comments are disappeared. So I wish
How are we going to beat a game you never put the time and effort into learn the rules of?
Okay, except that it's not about beating the game, Corey. It's about changing the way that we engage in it. It really is about changing. And one of the things Ken says over and over and over again is that A lot of people, most of the people who became famous for being in what is called the sovereignty movement, or which he calls the law or the solvency movement, because you reestablish your status and you get yourself back to a position where you actually are standing on the land and you are solvent and you're no longer responsible for this debt, for the debt. But most of the people who've done this over the years, who had the big workshops and had the big practice doing it and let other people through it, they would lead a bunch of people and they would get away from it a while, and then all of a sudden everyone would get slammed, and it's because they didn't correct their status first. And I think that's a very compelling point of view, is that we correct our status, our basic relationship within the matrix first. And, because there's always people saying, I went to court and I said this and I said that, and the judge freaked out and this happened and that happened, and they're all like chuckling and they beat the system. But the truth is, you're still in the system. You're still at war with the system. You don't really fully understand it. You did something that worked, and that feels like an amazing amount of power because that's so rare. But it doesn't mean that you're still at war, and you're almost making it worse for the people who come after you, who are trying to have this conversation with the system. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it makes sense to me. And I guess where I'm thinking about what Corey's saying is, I'm looking at the eyes of the cat.
Well, and why
how the cat,
right?
How it doesn't run in charge, and it doesn't fight immediately. The cat will sit there and it'll look for a little while. It'll pay attention. It'll look at its surroundings. It'll study the system. It'll study what it wants to eat.
Yes.
Before she pounces. It's a very wise, methodical creature. Like, there's a good documentary on Netflix talks about cats. It talks about the lion in my living room. And what it explains is that, when it comes to dogs, we domesticated the wolf and made a dog. But the cats are actually domesticating the human being. They're very smart creatures. The wolves have a pack intelligence where you have all of them and they all work together and they all do their parts. But these cats live by themselves for millions of years with all types of saber-toothed tigers and wolves and fox and coyote, and the cat made it because it's highly intelligent, because it doesn't react. It pays attention and then it strikes. And I think, are you saying that we're in a place where we need to kind of sit back, pay attention, like Corey said, learn the system, strike as a mass?
We need to study like a cat. But then and I liked what you first said about how they're domesticating us. It's not about sit back and learn the system so that then we can learn how to strike and kill it. We have a very, very smart cat. She's we think she's probably Savannah cat or Bengal. And she came in and she studied us, and then she decided how she was going to contribute to our family. So she shows up when we're together at night, and she insists that we all sit together and that we all like pet and purr together. And she's insisted that she gets a corner of the bed. It happens to be where my legs go down, but both Ben and the cat are kind of fat-seeking missiles in the bed. So I've had to adjust to the need for these skinny beings that need to be around my fatness in order to stay warm. But she has created, and she asked us to go outside together and play with her. So she is actually helping us to be better cats and to have a better family.
Yes, that's what they're doing. They're programming you. Yes.
She studied us first. And that's what I'm saying is, let's pull back, and things are horrible and people are freaking out. Yes. And I can't say that all activists and all strikes and everything else is bad. I don't know. I'm not an expert in the law, and I'm not an expert in the forward direction of humanity. I do know that I'm very interested in certain things like creating media cooperatives and collaboratives and other business cooperatives and public banking that can be done in the matrix that help to change it. Okay? I'm interested in finding the ways that people can withdraw their consent and do that in a way that educates other people how to do it. But I do know that I'm in this strange place where it feels like there's an emergency. There's a lot of poisoning happening. There's a lot of suffering being caused. But I know that I have to withdraw and do this extensive educating process so that I feel in my bones and in my heart that I don't want to be part of contributing to the killing of children and people committing suicide in China because my fucking iPhone, which I smashed, I need to replace my iPhone. And so I just, sorry, I'm a little overwhelmed.
It's good.
And I'm here to talk to Brother Gerard.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to it. There is a lot to it. And like I said, I don't totally understand it. I have to have my expert come on and talk about it. But any way out of this system, any way, it's like we don't have to agree on the way out. What we have to agree as a collective is we got to get out. All we have to agree is today doesn't work. And if we can come together on that massive understanding that all of the things that we do all over this planet, it's not for the betterment of humanity. The majority of the laws and the things that we do in this country, they're not for the betterment of the people in this country. And if we can drop all of the little silly politics and the things that people want to fight over, if we can agree that today doesn't work, then I'm game for any solution, right? Which is why this one was particularly exciting to me, is that I've heard of it and I never paid too much attention to it. But if the idea that we can stop participating and change the system and bring in a form of government that once again does respect human life, one that respects the rights of a human being to self-determine, then we go back to what we were designed to actually be. And as far as the rest of the world, it means that we leave the rest of the world alone so they can self-determine too. So whatever that solution may be, whether it's the admiralty laws or nullification, restore the Constitution, restore the republic, whatever gets the American boot off the necks of children all over this planet, I'm game for. So, what I don't understand though, I don't understand the fight that people have against, thoughts like this. When you hear something like this, if anything, we should be supportive of each other, not nullifying it in our own way because we don't believe it or we don't, think that it could be true or it seems too simple. We have to get behind each other. And that's the whole point of like being a family. We have to have each other's back. And so I love it. I love that you're studying it, and so someone was asking, what was that video and what was the name of the YouTube channel again?
It's Gemstone University's YouTube channel, and they have a 17-part series and a 6-part series and a 3-part and a 9. I don't know. Lots of different interviews with Ken Cousins. Or talks that he does where he sort of goes through a lot of the steps. I think one of the best introductory talks is his talk at Anarchapulco, which is something that James Corbett also goes to and presents at. And there's a lot of people who are involved in the sovereignty or the law or the solvency movement who participate there.
Okay.
But the thing that I really like the best about it is that he has such a complete system and he has a whole, program around it. But the Mutual Aid Society, the Pantera Mutual Aid Society, and their university for learning how to do this thing of changing your relationship to. There's no such thing as pulling out. We live in the matrix. We're all on this planet together until we get off planet and completely out of the banking system. Where, and we're no longer using mutual language, which is built up around the matrix and we're no longer contributing to it. We're still here. We're still in it. And so I love the idea that it's about correcting our relationship to it. And that's the best way that I can say it.
Correcting our relationship to it.
Yes. So the reason why I asked you to put up the kitty is because, I just wanted to use one little tiny example of how we participate in the matrix. So we go listen to the news, we let it manipulate us, we get all freaked out, and it tells us that, Black people are selfish, whiny assholes who, think the cops are killing them when they're not, and Black Lives Matter is evil.
They are. Stop it.
There's all of
everybody is. I'm paying attention. Everybody's whiny right now.
Women are whiny bitches who, won't do the really dirty, filthy jobs like, working in the oil fields or being a plumber, but They cry and don't like it if they don't get made the CEO of a company. And, you know, that men are horrible because men are just going to rape you because they're animals. And it's like we're constantly told these stories about how we are such low, degraded, lesser beings, and that we're all whiny and we all want something that we don't deserve.
Yep.
So we listen to that and we get all freaked out. And then we're like, I have to calm down. So we go on Facebook and we go and we find kitty pictures to give us an oxytocin hit to help us calm down and to feel like there might be something good in the world and to make us feel better. And we're just going back and forth between all of this artificial shit that's just the Matrix. It's just the Matrix. And we do that because we're at war. I just wanted to say that.
We are at war. And that's a really good perspective. I was never really much of a kitty picture person on Facebook, but I get it. I totally get that you have to make it work. You have to make the present ignorance work. Like there's a yoga. Can I jump to my yoga image? I want to show something real quick.
Sure.
I'm gonna jump over here. Like the world is crazy right now, and society is nuts, and people are losing their minds. And I think that we have to, however you find your present stillness,
right,
effective, you've got to have that stillness. You have to have that peace. Otherwise, you get lost in that matrix. And so this reminded me of the scene from the movie where, I don't know if you can see it, but there's people running around on the street. They're doing their thing, going to work, going to daycare, taking someone to soccer, flipping out, you know, doing whatever, fighting with somebody on Facebook, posting something on Twitter. And there's a lady in the middle who's just meditating.
Yeah.
She's found her present stillness. And to me, that's where we have to be. If you get it from kitten pictures, if you get it from gardening, if you get it from however you get it, you've got to be, you can't lose yourself in the matrix. That's how I kind of view it. You have to remember who you are. You have to remember how great you are. You have to love yourself, but at the same token, love others too. And like what you were just talking about in terms of how they get you to beat each other down and convince you that somebody else is a lesser or somebody's a degenerate. I mean, my goodness, we have politicians, we have political leaders of a freaking world that are calling people deplorables, degenerates,
right,
lazy, and it's insanity, right? These people are nuts to me. So I think you got to find your space, but also keep in mind how great everybody else is. And if you can love yourself and you can love other people, then the matrix can't devour you because it can't get you emotional and riled up when you hear things like that.
I agree. And in what you said, the thing that sticks out for me is that we have to forgive ourselves for having been a victim and been blaming of other people. And it's like a really deep process. And to me, it's no longer the spiritual thing. And now I'm just going to be happy because I have so much forgiveness. It's like actually practical. Because when I'm no longer having all of these reactions to this or that that's being done to me or that's being done to other people, I actually have more mental, practical energy for just taking on the work that needs to be done. And the emotionality becomes an excuse for inaction.
Yeah. Well, it's that focus. It's kind of like Bruce Lee. You know, Bruce Lee, you know, he kind of walked a little. He wouldn't just start fighting. He kind of do his thing a little bit, pay attention, size you up, make a little, wah! You know, he had a little bit of that. You know, and you have to wait for the moment. You know, you can't lose your mind. You got to have your focus. It's like, you know, it's like personal attacks. You know, people, they'll, you know, you're in a discussion with someone and you're trying to explain something to them or you're having whatever. And you get to a point where they don't have any further points to make. And they just say, you're dumb. You're stupid. You make no sense. You're ignorant, you know, and they try to make it a personal thing. And they want you to react. Because I think if someone can control you by words and they can well up emotion and get you to react, your fight is less effective, you know? And so I think you gotta maintain that stillness and that strategy and not let people get you to react, because if they can get you to react, they actually control you. And if they control you, it's another warm body walking around in the matrix. You gotta have that self-control.
That's right. So you know, in the Matrix, when Neo is like, he puts out his hand and he stops the bullets.
Yes.
It reminds me of that movement and I guess that this was incorporated a lot in his training for it. It reminds me of that movement in I used to do a basic Qigong series, and it's called inserting the hand into Mount Huashan. And it's like the way that you do it, it's like you imagine that you're in ancient China and you're looking at Mount Huashan, and you're so still and you're so completely in the flow of the universe that you can just reach out your hand and your hand goes in. Oh, I probably shouldn't do that to the screen. Your hand goes right into the mountain. It just goes between the molecules. And I feel like we can actually be transformative in an alchemical sense if we can reach that place of stillness where seeing how to be more effective right away by focusing on this, coming from a place of peace and having stopped fighting with the matrix. And that's why going in 4 different random groups, they were community groups. I just said, hey, has anyone tested your snow or rainwater for heavy metals? I've seen some results that are upsetting. And the conversations were incredibly civil in every single one, and people wanted more information. And that's when I realized people know what's going on. They're just afraid, and they're used to being in a defensive, warring posture. And, you know, if people are afraid of an idea and they can turn you into an asshole for bringing it up, then, well, you know, and by making you react, then they don't have to listen to your idea.
And that's what they want. That's what they're trained to do. Just how the system trains you to fight it. Just how, you know, the police state, it wants you to be violent. It knows how to deal with that. When you talk to people, they want you to fight them. They want to say things and throw this jab and that jab and pull you into a fight, because that's what they're used to. They go from site to site to site on the internet, Twitter to phone to whatever, fighting with other ignorant people, and they want to come and they want to fight with you. And this is why I don't fight with anybody. You don't. After a lot of people say stuff, they'll talk about me and my mama and stuff, crazy stuff. I think it's funny, actually. I think that people, you know, you really, like, life is that bad that you would actually call me a name and we're having a discussion about vaccines? Why would you do that? I love you. You come here, let me hug you. Let me just bring it in. And that's kind of where I'm coming from. But, you know, but getting riled up over things that very few of us even know a piece of what actually is going on, it's useless. But they want you to react. And so I think the best thing to do is just never react. And maybe that's what they see in you, is that, you know what, you're not someone to fight with. You're someone either to learn from or work with. And that's who I'm interested in talking to. I love talking to people who teach me something. Like, I don't do this because I want to teach anybody anything. I'm an idiot. I know me. I grew up with me. I didn't see the stuff I did. You know, actually, I jumped off the roof of the house one day with a cape on. I thought I was Superman. I've done some dumb things in my life. You know, but I want to be around. All the
time when we were kids. We used to climb up on top of the playhouse and jump off into the snow. And I'm really shocked that nobody in my family ever broke a bone. Yeah. So,
and that's another discussion about, you know, how the universe works the way it's supposed to and things unfold as they may. And I'm a total believer in all of that. But I think our piece in this is that we have to be adults. I think if the adults on this planet actually act mature like adults instead of childish and fighting and over things they couldn't possibly know and have no facts for, I think the world goes the way the Matrix wants it to. It goes the way the cops in the Matrix want it to go.
That's right.
Adults actually act like adults, and they have simple discussions that are fact-based. They're respectful. They're empathetic. They put their selves in someone else's shoes, whether it be somebody in Yemen or just a person they're talking to. Then the world goes in a very evolutionary direction where we get smarter, we get better, we build a better world each generation. So we got to get out of this childish behavior of fighting with people on the internet for nothing.
So I like what you said about how the world goes a certain way when you come from that place of peace. Ken Cousins talks about having been stopped, and the cops asked him why he didn't have a driver's license. He went through a stop sign or something. And he said he tries to obey the rules because, you know, you're not really changing things in the matrix if you've changed your quote legal status, but then you go out being an asshole and making people feel riled up and combative all the time. So he got stopped by the cops, and he was completely peaceful, and he explained what his alternative driver's license was about, and the cop came back and said, I don't know what this is, but you seem like you're a nice, peaceful guy, and have a good day, sir. And then Ken explained a little bit more about him, and it was an educational moment, and went on. And I was like, okay, that's a great example. And he's an old white guy.
Well, people feed from your energy. They do.
You know what I'm saying? There's always going to be like the reality check of Philando Castile seemed like an incredibly peaceful person to me. He just emanated that peace. So there's always a risk for everyone, and we're still in a matrix where people are coming at each other with an attitude of war.
Yeah.
The powers that be are taught that, from the cops to the teachers to everything, that the average citizen is an enemy of the state, and so we're treated that way. And you have to really, just from every cell of your being, you have to work hard at being in that place of peace. And still, it's not always going to work.
And right, because there are some people who are just going to want to fight, and the police is a great example. They feed from the energy we give them, like everybody else. They're human beings like we are, and the biggest trouble I think we have isn't really us. It's the fact that there are children watching the adults being jerks, right? There are children watching the adults talking to police like jerks. There are children who are actually implementing this, and the adult might have just enough of a frontal lobe where they know how far to take it, and they stop.
Right.
But the child doesn't. And so at 17, they're pushing the police the same way they see their parents and the other ignorant, stupid people in our society that are pushing these police, and they don't understand that these adults are faking. They don't understand that these adults are playing tough guy. They don't understand that these adults are actually scared of the police and scared of the gun.
That's right.
So when the adults pull back, they get to live. But the children keep pushing it. And the training of the police kicks in, and you got some, those police with extreme restraint, and you got others that don't have a lot of restraint. And this is why I don't blame any child for anything they do. Because every child is I was thinking about this earlier. Every child is just a product of their environment. And it's the adults in the community, the society, who we vote for, who we put in office, what we do and support, what they see in us. It's not just the parents, it's all of us. The children are the test of where our society is going. And our society is really going down the tubes because we got really ignorant faking. We used to call it perpetrating. These adults who perpetrate, the tough guys and the tough girls, and they talk all this trash. But the point is that the police, the FBI, all of them, they feed from that energy. This is why I tell every kid I see. I say, for the most part, your parents are stupid. Don't listen to them. When the police pulls you over, listen to the person with the gun. It's not even the police. It's basic, common, human, dumb, stupid, basic logic. If the person has a sword, you listen to the person with the sword. You get out of the situation, and then you report them or do whatever you're going to do. But you don't take on somebody who has a gun, whether it's a robber or someone from a security agency.
So you reminded me of something that I saw recently. Again, this was a Sarah Westall interview, and she was interviewing a woman who had studied the history of the Indian schools. You know what that's about for 150 or 100 years?
Yeah, when they took all the kids and they pulled them all into those schools to indoctrinate them into the crazy debt-based colonial society.
But do you know what was the main reason why they did this? And they actually articulated this. The psychologists, see, the British Royal Society was founded in 1717 or something. Okay. And there's been this intentional experimenting on the population and learning how to scientifically control us since that time. And one of the things that they learned early on, even though they didn't have the language for it till later, was that if you take young women and young men away from their parents, they, when they're really young, they develop attachment disorder, and then the women will never be able to be a real mother. And so the women, when they go back to their, this is what was articulated by this Native American woman. And she said they learned that then they would send these women back to their communities after having gone to Indian school, and they wouldn't have the faintest idea how to be a mother and how to make an appropriate bonding attachment to the children. And in this way, they were able to destroy the entire culture of every tribe, of every community. And that was really profound for me. And I know that I had to work really hard on myself with my own attachment and bonding issues, but I took personal responsibility for it, and I did it. I did that work for myself. And I was incredibly lucky to know somebody who pointed out that that was something to work on and gave me tools for doing it, a psychologist that I knew. But there's so many layers to this, Gerard.
Yeah, well, but they knew what they were doing.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, talking about destroying culture, though, but this was the strategy, right? They didn't just do this in America. They did this all over the world. Like you invade
on all of the serfs everywhere. I mean, we're still in a feudal system. We are legally, technically, in a feudal system, and they practiced it everywhere. And we have gone along with it in various ways that we don't have to anymore.
All right. Well, so what they would do, and they do it today, is they break people's tie to the past. If you can destroy culture in less than one generation, you destroy the people.
Yes.
So they took the kids into the school. They lost the ability to live on the land. They forgot, their heritage and their culture. And I think they used to take them at ages of like 5. And so they made it back to their parents at age 16, even though they were on a reservation or wherever. This is not my life. Like, I barely know these people we call parents. I don't remember how to take care of myself. I need someone to pour my milk, and I eat my cereal for breakfast. And this is where we are. We've forgotten how to take care of ourselves. And it's based on I think it's 2 important things. One, you destroy the pride in the people because they don't know what they are. You destroy their heritage. And 2, you make them dependents on your system. So they can't take care of themselves. They don't know how to find water. They don't know how to grow food. And this is the current issue that America, the world has now, is as dependents, you have no ability to tell your government anything. As a dependent, your government who runs that infrastructure, they control everything. And so, but this was what they did throughout all of their colonies. That's why I love, I'm going to change how I speak. I love how in the movie Black Panther, they kept calling them colonizers. I think from now on, I'm going to call myself and everybody in my country colonizers, because that's what we are. Whether we took over the colonies or not, we benefit from the colonies all over the world that we have. And so we really are colonizers. And until we change from being colonizers, I just see it as we're all to a degree complicit.
Exactly. And so it's not only, I mean, Hannah Arendt did a really good job of describing the way that people are, and so did Aldous Huxley when he talked about, no, it was Animal Farm. The history going down the memory hole so that people have no connection to their past, and how that's how you really destroy the will of a people, and you destroy the spirit of an individual. But the breaking the attachment bonds with parents so that you have attachment disorder and you don't have the ability to make appropriate bonds with people is another really big part of it. And it's good that we're having this conversation. Can we go to the peaceful lake picture? Because I'm afraid that woman's going to get knocked over by some Wall Street businessman talking on yelling into his iPhone.
Yeah. So, but
I don't have much more to say on this. I'm really glad we started this conversation, and I'm really glad you've been learning about this and posting memes related to this solvency, sovereignty, law movement, Gerard. It's been really great to see that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's just the beginnings. Like I said, I mean, there's so much to it that I completely don't understand. I mean, you literally, I think you almost have to be a law student beginning just to kind of grasp what they're talking about. Like I talk about how Chris has Jessica on a lot. If you haven't seen a lot of Chris's videos, Jessica and her boyfriend Darnell, they talk about the details of it, right? Like they know the laws. They know, they can send you to the law book in the section paragraph, where it says this. And I think you really need people who know it to that level and that degree. Otherwise, because that's what brings it credibility. So for the most part, I try not to talk about things too much that I'm not ready to talk about. But it's very exciting. And I watched a couple talks on it, and probably a lecture. But there are a lot of people in the legal industry who see validity in what's being said, that we were rused, and that our government actually isn't our government. Our government really, it's almost a department that is staging a debt collection for the banks and the corporations or the British government, whoever actually bailed us out. But I think a lot of us know something was wrong, though. A lot of us can feel it.
We know deep down that we're complicit. We know deep down that we're complicit. And the process of accepting that we're complicit and that there's no out and there's no blame, that it's now just taking responsibility and changing it from the inside is, that's a really positive and powerful set of steps. And I'm really glad we have people like Corey Banks, who is in our larger community, and people like Chris Walker, who talks a lot about coming from peace and having that sense of interpersonality. And Debbie Lusignan had a really nice talk about that recently. And I'm starting to see that in our larger community of truth seekers, that a lot of us are coming to I feel like a similar place, and where we're acting and activating from. So activism from a different sense of stillness.
Right. Well, you have to have that stillness.
Yeah.
You can't give up your power. You can't let them take your power. Another place I think people get that is through comedy and through humor.
Right.
When you can laugh at the stuff, it's not as emotional. It's not as devastating. It's not as end of the worldish. And a lot of people, I think, they back away from the truth because the truth kind of sucks. The truth kind of sucks. It's like I laugh about, I have, family and friends who kind of avoid me because they're like, oh, I don't want to feel like the world is coming to an end. And I actually think it's pretty funny. I have a lot of friends that make jokes about the end of the world, and it's actually pretty funny right now. Like where I am is, if this is the end, I'm okay with that. If this is not the end, I'm okay with that too. But if we don't talk about the truth, it's definitely going to be the end, and it's definitely going to hurt. So I think you have to find your space. But you have to join the adult world. You have to get out of the indoctrinated, childish, immature boxes that we're put in. And if you don't do that, then you are a part in perpetuating the problem.
Right. Well, we are legally, technically considered wards of the state. When we were lifted off the land and put into this citizen status of the bonded sureties for the debt, we are literally wards of the state and considered enemies of the state. And so all of that status needs to be corrected. And I'm trying to learn how to do that. So I probably should go. I don't know that I have much more to say.
All right. Well, no, that's good. I'm feeling it. I feel like I'm an enemy of the state. I can't go anywhere without my camera being turned on and microphones listening.
Feed us that way.
You think
we have allowed this, we have ennobled this, we haven't questioned this in a way that was adult and intelligent, but now we're starting.
Well, right. And we're starting to a degree. Some are still fighting it. I got in a lot of trouble the last couple of days because me, I'm not interested in gun control because to me, it goes along that same narrative.
Right.
There's something wrong with you people.
That's right.
People, we got to take your guns because you human beings, there's something wrong with you. And it's the same narrative as black people are lazy and they don't like to work. Rednecks and ZZ Top people, they just go to tractor pulls and drink beer.
Right.
women don't want to, and it's just this same ridiculous concept. So I'm not interested in anything the state has to say that's wrong with people.
Right.
Anyway, we could talk about it all day.
Let's. I want to talk that the next time you watch a video, I'll watch it with you. Or you read the next piece, and let's talk about. Let's keep this going, because I think a lot of people are just frantic for what we do, and people are intuitively sensing that that it's not going to be violence. We're not going to solve this with violence, and people don't want to solve it with violence. And people are very hopeful and prayerful that there's another way. And if that other way is everyone stepping up our game and becoming adult in a different way, then that's what we have to model. So let's talk again soon.
Okay, let's do that, but let's make sure we plug. Is it Gemstone University?
Yeah, I mean,
right here, right?
I'm delayed from you, and I can't really see what you're doing.
Website, our
Okay.
society.
So yes,
But
Gemstone.
I'm tagging my friend Jilly. She's a member, and she's sort of part of the coordinating team.
Okay, someone can put a link in there. So check it out like that. And that's the whole point, is we talk about things, and we actually need the community to take a look at these things, and so we can have the discussions.
Yeah.
I'm one who tell you, I don't have followers. I don't even know what a follower is.
Right.
You know what I have? I have fact checkers.
There you go.
Followers. I have fact checkers. And so, because what they'll do is, if I say something that's wrong, they'll call me on it, right? And that's what we need. That's how we get smarter. So we need the community to go out and take a look on YouTube. It's Gemstone University. That actually is the username in the channel. Start watching some of Ken's videos and start giving your perspective as to, what your thoughts are. But that's how we get somewhere as a collective, is everybody jumps in. It's not just you listen to us talk and have discussions, but you actually watch and do your assessment and give us feedback as to whether or not these are the directions we need to go, and what our next steps are. So listen, I appreciate you coming on, Greene. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you for having me on, Gerard, and for sharing our mutual friends and your wonderful kitties and meditators and lakes and humor.
You got to have your place of peace.
You have to.
At whatever your place of peace is, whatever, if you don't have it, you are useless.
Well, my piece for realizing that I'm not the victim, that I'm a participant here, and that I need to just jump in and do my work.
Well, we all have a lot of work to do. We just have to keep moving forward, and we got to do it with love. We can't do it with ignorance and immaturity. So I appreciate everybody joining. A little bit immature, please. What's that?
We can be a little bit immature.
Well, we can have fun. But it doesn't mean, like, there is destructive immaturity and there's immaturity.
Right.
And so there's a big difference. Be constructively funny when you're immature, but don't be destructive in anything you do. If you end up in a conversation and people are mad at you and you're mad at people, you're destructive, and something has to change.
By the way, you have groupies.
I do? No, I don't. Yeah. No, there's no such thing. You know why?
I'm not going to argue with you.
There's no such, because everybody I know is a fact checker. And everybody I know, you don't get to be my friend if you just go along with what I say. You get to be my friend if you are a fact checker, because you know what the problem with like these pod and groupie things are? Is that they follow people and they begin to worship them. And
that's right.
That's not the intent of a truth movement. The intent of a truth movement is to make each other smarter. And you don't make each other smarter just being a pod person and patting each other on the back. If what you say is right, go with it. If what you say is wrong. So I'm not a groupie of anybody. I don't have any groupies. I'm married. I don't see you as a groupie. I can't see that you have any groupies. I just see a whole bunch of people.
We're just sharing
walk of life
together.
Huh?
Well, if I felt like people were just, coming on to listen to me talk for whatever reason, for, like their background conversation, or, you know, to help them get up the courage to do something, but then they never did, I would just be annoyed by that. I'd want to feel like we're really in this together. And that's why the Greene Fyre Review has, for like the weekly, for the monthly marathons, we're introducing a lot of new people and helping people. So if you're out there and you want to get your, you know, you want to get your voice on, we have different structures. You can do the weekly news roundup. The fuck happened? Will is running that. He's been running the monthly marathons. We want people to be engaged. Absolutely. So anyway, blood sugar's crashing, and I hear people making food in the kitchen. I'm going to have to go. Love you, brother Gerard. Thank you so much.
It's always a pleasure. Have a wonderful evening. You guys have a wonderful night, and slavery tomorrow. So get your cotton bag. Bye-bye.